Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game review to Everton's goalless draw against Tottenham Hotspur at Goodison Park last Sunday. Now I do want to apologise before we get into this live stream. Usually we do the reviews on a Monday, or typically a Tuesday at the very latest. It is Wednesday evening. Unfortunately I couldn't do the review on either Monday or Tuesday. I've had an absolutely manic couple of days in work and stuff. Didn't get home from work yesterday till about 7 o'clock. I was stuck on the motorway on the way home from Manchester at 6 o'clock or something like that. So I thought, you know what, we'll just wait a day. We'll do it on Wednesday at a reasonable time when people can sit down and chill and watch it, and there's still a bit of sunlight outside. I still need to get the blinds fixed so that I'm not in either complete darkness or being blinded by the sun. So I do just want to apologise for the lateness of the game reviews. If you're new to the channel and you've only just subscribed, you've only just started joining us, typically the reviews to the games are on a Monday, as I said, Tuesday at the very latest. If the game is played on the weekend, of course, we don't usually do them on a Wednesday. Typically this stream would be another stream, another talking point, another topic, something else to dig our, to get ourselves into and discuss, and those streams will still be coming this week. Don't you worry, we'll have a stream tomorrow about something I want to sit down and talk about, but I'm not going to say it yet, and we'll have one on Friday, of course. So you're not missing out on any content. It is the international break now, of course, so no football for at least another week and a bit, but we are going to sit down today and talk about Everton's goalless draw against Tottenham Hotspur last Sunday at Goodison Park. Rafa Benitez's Everton side, of course, coming into this game off the back of 3 straight defeat to West Ham United, Watford, and then of course more recently Wolves last Monday. And it was a game that, we absolutely had to get something out of, in my opinion. We at the very least had to show that there was fight, there was determination, there was passion, because we were coming up against the Tottenham team who, okay, granted, haven't been in fantastic form this season and haven't had the greatest start to the season themselves. However, obviously, they have got a new manager, Antonio Conte's first Premier League game in charge of Tottenham Hotspur, first away game in the Premier League in charge of Tottenham Hotspur as well. So this was always going to be a massively difficult task. And whether Tottenham Hotspur are in good form or not, whether Tottenham Hotspur have had a good start to the season or not, they've still got players like Harry Kane, Son, Lucas Moura, who can certainly hurt teams on their day, and if sides make mistakes and give them opportunities. And if there was going to be any team to give Tottenham opportunities on Sunday, it would have been Everton, given the last sort of 3 games and the last sort of 3 results. We were awful in the first half against Wolves. Yes, we got better in the second half, but we weren't much better. We still weren't creating anything. We still weren't a massive threat. We were awful in the game against Watford. Even, I've mentioned the Watford game a couple of times since it happened, and I always sort of mention the last 15 minutes of the Watford game, but when you look at it, we were awful for the whole game, really, other than the first 2 minutes when we scored the opening goal, and obviously the Richarlison goal. We were dreadful for the rest of the game, and obviously the West Ham game wasn't a great performance either. So this one was a massive game for Rafa Benitez. Pressure from the fans, of course, on the players. We've done a couple of videos ourselves over the last 2 weeks sitting down and talking about these players and whether or not they care, whether or not they want to play for Everton, whether or not they're good enough to play for Everton is a different question. But as I've said on a number of occasions over the last week or so, no footballer can sit there and tell me that they're not good enough to give 100%. You mightn't be good enough to start week in, week out for Everton. You mightn't be good enough to score goals, to be a top-class defender, to be a top-class goalkeeper, but there's not one footballer who can out there who can sit down and tell me, or anybody really, that can say that they're not good enough to give 100%. Everybody can give 100% in whatever they're doing, especially Premier League footballers, and that's been a big question over the last couple of weeks, is can these players give 100%? Can these players go out there, dig deep, work hard, fight battle, show that determination, show that passion, that is going to be needed to get results in the Premier League? We haven't over the last couple of weeks or so, and that was a big worry going into Sunday's game, coming up against the Tottenham Hotspur team, who of course have had a massive boost as a club in general with the appointment of Antonio Conte. They had one game in the Europa Conference League last week, won 3-2, albeit Vitesse come back, didn't need to make it 3-2, but they still won that game. And in the first half an hour I was watching them thinking, these have just turned it up a level. If we perform how we've been performing against this Tottenham team on Sunday, then it won't be a pretty sight whatsoever. But we didn't. We turned up, we fought, we battled, we worked hard, we showed that passion, we showed that determination. And yes, it wasn't the greatest performance in the world. I'm not going to sit here and talk for an hour and a bit about how unbelievable Everton were on Sunday, because we were lacking a real element of quality up front, albeit we had Damari Gray, Richarlison, Andros Townsend, they were all working hard. That final product wasn't quite there at the weekend. We were missing Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who, again, as I said in the instant match reaction, it's no surprise that we're sitting here saying we're missing Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we're missing Abdoulaye Doucouré. These players are simply irreplaceable for a club and a team like Everton. Irreplaceable. We're not Manchester City. You can't take Dominic Calvert-Lewin out and replace him with somebody equally as good, if not better. You can't take Abdoulaye Doucouré out and replace him with somebody who is equally as good, if not better. We're not that type of club. We're not that type of team. So we're bound to miss these players, and we did on Sunday. So it wasn't the most unbelievable performance. It wasn't the most unbelievable game of football, to be honest with you. Spurs didn't have a single shot on target, despite Sky Sports stating that they dominated Everton. I've just watched the highlights of the game just to remind myself, keep myself, again, refreshed on how it went down. And if you go on the Sky Sports YouTube channel and watch the highlights of Sunday's game, it's literally all Tottenham. Other than the penalty situation, it's all Tottenham. Now, granted, Everton didn't have many chances ourselves, I understand that, but Ben Godfrey had the only shot of the game that was on target. We had a couple of chances with Andros Townsend and Damari Gray where they got into good areas. So if you listen to certain journalists and certain, television stations, they'll tell you that Tottenham absolutely dominated this game and Everton were lucky to hold on. It wasn't that case whatsoever. Everton were the better team, in my opinion. If any team was the better team, Everton were the better team. Granted, as I said, it wasn't the greatest game of football. I think, as I said, one shot on target between the both teams all game. If you're a neutral watching it, you're probably bored, shitless for the entirety of the 90 minutes. But what I took away from it was that is the Everton that we know and love. That is the Everton that we want to see week in, week out. We dug deep, we fought, we battled, we worked hard. And I can sit here confidently on the Wednesday following that game and say I believe every Everton player, near enough every Everton player, gave 100% on the weekend. And listen, sometimes you'll win a game of footy, sometimes you'll lose a game of footy, sometimes you'll be absolutely obliterated, sometimes you'll absolutely obliterate, another team. But if you give it 100% every time you go out there, there's not much more we can want from you as a player, as a fan. Yes, we can demand a better quality of player from the board. Yes, we can demand better tactics from the manager, better decision making, etc. But if you're giving it 100%, then ultimately we leave Goodison Park and say, do you know what? Regardless of the result, wins or worked hard, they battled hard, they fought hard today, again, the result was what it was, and we haven't been able to say that recently. The majority of us left Goodison Park after the Watford game and said, what was that, and what are these players thinking, did they care? The Wolves game, the first half, very, very much seemed like they weren't interested, they weren't asked, they didn't care. So it was refreshing to see that type of performance on Sunday, a hard-working, tough performance where the players had to dig deep, work hard, battle, and I think there was a number of different elements to that contributed to the players getting their head down and working hard. 3 straight defeats on the bounce probably helped, being in front of the crowd at Goodison Park after 3 straight defeats. I think the players and the manager knew that we couldn't afford another defeat. Especially not to a Tottenham Hotspur team who haven't been very good this season. They haven't, let's have it right, they haven't been very good. I think it would have been a very hostile environment and atmosphere had we have lost that game or had we have gone a goal down. I think there was a moment in the opening couple of minutes where Son dived in the middle of the park. He wanted to win a free kick, he threw himself on the floor, he had to go with the referee, and that built the atmosphere then. I keep saying this atmosphere is so vitally important in football, and I'm not going to sit here and quiz anybody or tell anybody off about, you should be singing in every game. I don't stand up and sing every time I maybe could. I don't start chants all the time. I don't sit there and I'm not there voiceless every game at Goodison Park singing my heart off from minute 1 to minute 90. There's times where I'm sitting there just watching the game. There's times where I'm sitting there just observing, watching what's happening. So I can't sit here and, lay into anybody about atmosphere and how it needs to be better. But I've grown up personally, and I know a lot of people will have in the live comments or will have lived through the David Moyes era of Everton, when the atmosphere at Goodison Park was truly one of the best in world football. I'd back Everton in the early 2000s. I'd have backed Everton as having a better atmosphere than anybody on this planet, any football club on this planet. And the atmosphere on multiple occasions over David Moyes' tenure at the football club was a massive, massive, massive factor in us getting results, in us winning games, in us beating teams, in us finishing high in the league, in us digging deep and winning games of football, working hard, battling. That was what, again, I'm not saying that was the only contributing factor, but it was a massive contributing factor to us getting results. Now, when Goodison is, droopy and everyone's got their head down and moaning and groaning and shouting, the players don't react to that. The players don't respond. They very rarely perform well when the crowd isn't performing well. Son threw himself on the floor in the opening 2 or 3 minutes and everybody got on his back, as to be expected, given, again, what happened the last time Son played in front of a full capacity, stadium at Goodison Park. Some Tottenham fans were moaning about it, saying it was disrespectful and this, that and the other. As far as I'm concerned, I still personally think that challenge on Andre Gomez was not purposely done to injure him in the way he did, but there was a certain level of intent behind the challenge. So people were always going to get behind Son, and as soon as as soon as Son threw himself on the floor and the crowd sort of jumped up and all sort of rejoiced in giving him a bit of stick, that's when the atmosphere lifted then. And that was when the players started to dig deep, the players started to work hard. It was almost back to that Goodison atmosphere of, we're the underdog here. We're not supposed to win this game. It's Antonio Conte's first game in charge of Tottenham. Sky were all over it. They were loving it. Even now you're seeing tweets from Sky how Tottenham's fullbacks dominated Everton. They didn't have a shot on target. Shut up, mate. Shut up, chatting shite. Whatever his name is, Dermot O'Gallagher or Dermot Gallagher, whatever his name is. You're chatting wallop, mate. Absolute wallop. And the crowd, again, it was the first time in a while I'd felt like being at Goodison and feeling like, we're up against it here. We're up against it. And the players reacted to that as well. And listen, that's not a let-off for the players, because that's not always going to be the case. We're not going to turn up at Goodison to watch Everton face Watford and think we're up against it here. We best get, behind the players. I'm not saying we should or shouldn't get behind the players, or we should or we shouldn't start chants. The atmosphere, it'd be amazing if the atmosphere was unbelievable every time we went to Goodison. But you can't expect the fans to turn up at Goodison and scream and shout when a Watford player or a Norwich player or a Burnley player throws themselves on the floor, because the expectation is we turn up and we beat those teams without having to have any of that. So the players have still got a massive part to play, but I just felt the atmosphere was so much better at Goodison on Sunday, and I felt like the performance was much better, much more of what we want to see. Quality lacking in the final third, albeit I understand that, and chances creation wise and conversion and all that. Obviously we didn't score, and as I said, we had one shot on target, and even that come from a Ben Godfrey effort where it rolled out to him on the edge of the box and he hit it straight at Hugo Lloris, really, and it was a comfortable save. So it wasn't like we could sit here and say we were unbelievable, we were amazing. We weren't, but the level of fight, the level of intensity, the level of desire was what we want to see as Evertonians. That was more the Everton that we know and love. That was more the Everton that we want to pay our money to watch. That was more the Everton that I, as a 23-year-old blue, and I'm sure a lot of people watching and a lot of people that might be older, younger than me, have grown up watching. That Everton that might not necessarily get the results in every game, might necessarily score 4 or 5 goals in every game, but will definitely give it 100% and work the bollocks off every time they're on that pitch. And, ultimately, that's what we did. Listen, as I said, there wasn't an awful lot to talk about in this game. We are going to talk about the referee, Chris Kavanagh, because I think he's an absolute disgrace, and I think it is abhorrent how he hasn't had the, let's say the, I don't know. I don't want to. Let's just say he hasn't felt the need to come out and explain his decisions. I'm sick of referees in this league. By the way, I'm absolutely sick. Referees are the only, I don't even call them an entity. The only job within football where they're not held accountable for their decisions. If a manager makes a bad decision, he's thrown in front of the media directly after the final whistle of a game. He's thrown straight in there and he's asked this question, that question, the other question about why he made this decision, why he made that substitution, why the players didn't perform. If a player makes a bad tackle or misses an open chance or doesn't make a save or makes a mistake in goal, the media are all over them. Newspaper articles talking about them every 10 minutes on television stations, getting on their back. Look at the Jordan Pickford situation with Virgil van Dijk a couple of years ago. I don't want to go too deep into it, but last year, but look at what happened. Jordan made a mistake and he was on the back page of every newspaper for 6 months, vilifying him as the worst person in the world because he made a bad challenge. Referees are the only, again, job occupation, whatever you want to call it, within football, where they can make as many bad decisions as they want, they can make as many questionable decisions as they want, they can make any clear bias, awful decisions as they want, and they're not questioned on it. They're not pulled out, I think it all falls into this whole, you can't question, you've just got to respect the referee's decision. You can't question it, the referee's decision is final. Well, why? I don't respect Chris Kavanagh giving overturning a blatant penalty at Goodison Park because for no reason that I've known. If Chris Kavanagh comes out and says, listen, this is the way I've seen it, this, that and the other, this is how I dealt with, this is how I thought the situation was, so therefore I decided to overturn it because I didn't think it was a penalty. This is the reason why I thought Mason Holgate was a sending off, so therefore I sent him off. There you go. End of story. Then I'd have a lot more respect for him because I'd be able to sit here and say, well, okay, I don't agree with the decision. I don't agree with his choice, but he's made the decision. He's come out. He's explained his decision, and somebody in the media has put that question to him. Somebody has said, listen, why did you make this decision? But it's not. Referees can go out there and put in the worst performances you'll ever see on a football pitch and then leave the ground and it won't be mentioned again. And next week they'll be they'll be refereeing another Premier League game, making another mistake. And the week after they'll be controlling the VAR on another Premier League game, making another mistake. Why are referees not held accountable? If Dominic Calvert-Lewin can score an hat-trick and then stand in front of the cameras at the end of the game talking about the game, if Jordan Pickford can make a worldy save and then stand in front of the cameras after the game and talk about it, if Rafa Benitez can make an awful substitution and then stand in front of the cameras and have to explain that, if Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, Micah Richards, Roy Keane, Ian Rush, all of these people can sit on Sky Sports, Gary Lineker, Jake, what's-his-face from BT, can sit there and in-depthly discuss footballing games and decisions that players are making and managers making. Why can't they get a referee in an interview box and say, explain this decision? Why can't they? It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. We will go on to further talking about the penalty situation a little bit later on in the stream, and obviously the Mason Holgate red card, but I'm absolutely sick to the back teeth of referees being able to just turn up, make woeful decisions that everybody in the stadium is sitting there scratching their head about, thinking, how have you come to that conclusion, and then get off without even being questioned on it. And if you do question them on it, or you do, have the audacity to say something in an interview. I remember Charlie Austin saying something about a referee in an interview when he played for Southampton. He spoke about basically the fact that the referees in this league are nowhere near as good as they should be, considering it's the best league in the world, I think he said. And next minute, he was again, he wasn't playing, and then he was shoved out of Southampton. It's almost like this unwritten entity that you can't ever speak of, or you can't ever say anything bad about. It's not disrespectful. It's not disrespectful for me to sit here and say, why can't Chris Kavanagh come out and explain that decision? Why can't Chris Kavanagh sit in front of a camera at the end of the game? Why can't the referees go to the interview board at the end of the game? And why can't Sky say, you disallowed the penalty there, you overturned it, you give it in real time, and then you've seen the replay closer, why did you disallow it? It's all good, Peter fucking Walton sitting in the BT studio saying, I think it's this, I think... Peter Walton just agrees with what the commentators say. The commentators say, surely that's a penalty, Peter. Yeah, it's a penalty. If they said, surely that's not a penalty, Peter. Yeah, don't think it's a penalty. It's all good, him sitting there. It doesn't matter. Peter Walton's not refereeing the games. He's sitting watching the game like the rest of us are on BT. No disrespect to Peter Walton, of course, but he's not on the pitch refereeing the game. He hasn't made the decision, so it's useless, his input. Absolutely useless, other than he used to be a referee, and most of the time he just says what we're all thinking anyway. Why can't the referees be stood in front of an interview board at the end of the game? Why did you make that decision? Why did you overturn the penalty after seeing it? What did you see in the replay that you didn't see in real time? Why did you give the red card? Mason Holgate won the ball. Is it because of the follow through? Well, if it's not about winning the ball, then why isn't it a penalty? Because Hugo Lloris barely touched the ball, but you're saying it wasn't a penalty because he won the ball, so surely it's not a red card because Mason Holgate won the ball. Put these questions to referees and have them answer them. Have them, ultimately, the point I'm trying to make is if the referee, i.e. Chris Kavanagh, finds no issue in the decisions that he's made on Sunday and thinks that the decisions that he's made are the right decisions, then surely he'd have no issue standing in front of a camera and explaining that. Because I know for me, personally, if I make a decision in my life with the channel or with whatever, and I am adamant that decision is the right decision, and somebody says to me, why did you make that decision? I'll answer it. Whether you agree with it or not, I'll say, well, I made this decision because of this, and I thought that it was the right decision. End of story. if he's that confident that the decision that he's made is the right decision, then surely he'd have no problem coming out and explaining that. And this is where I think it differs. I don't think he is confident in the decision that he's making, and I think half the time, most of the referees in this league just guess. They just guess about the decision. They just make the rules up as they go. All of this, it's their own interpretation. You can't have a set of rules that can then be interpreted. You can't. It's not a rule if it's down to opinion, is it? It's not a rule if one referee says it's a penalty and another referee says it's not a penalty. That's not a fucking rule. That's a nonsense. That's a nonsense at the end of the day. So anyway, look, we'll get back onto Chris Kavanagh and the penalty decision. The red card a little bit later on in the live stream. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Recently hit 9,000 followers on Twitter as well today, so thank you all very, very much for that. I really, really, really do appreciate it. It means a massive, massive amount to me. As I say, the support on all of our socials and the and the YouTube channel has been unbelievable. Recently, we hit 5,000 subscribers. A couple of weeks ago, we hit 1 million views last week, and we've just hit 9,000 followers on Twitter. So thank you all so much. As I said, if you're enjoying this one, leave a like. If you're watching live, get your thoughts in the live comments. It would mean a massive, massive amount to me. If you're watching the YouTube video, get your thoughts down below, and I'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. Then it says, has to be interpreted. They ain't robots. But it's not a case of being robots. It's a case of having a set of rules, isn't it? It's a case of having a set of rules. Because the way I look at it is that Chris Kavanagh, and again, we'll never know this because he hasn't come out and done an interview. He hasn't come out and explained the decision, and he never will, and no referee ever will either. And to be honest, I question whether they are robots or not, because you never see them other than when they're on the football pitch. You don't even see them leaving the game, leaving the ground. Everyone else is pictured by paparazzi. Referees aren't. Anyway, as I said, it's not a case of that the robots or it's the rules, etc. My point is that Chris Kavanagh denied the penalty because, from what I can only assume, and I don't know because he hasn't stated, but from what I can only assume is because Hugo Lloris got a hand on the ball. Now, I guarantee you, a player who plays for Tottenham, Arsenal, Man United, Man City, Liverpool or Chelsea will go down in the box within the next week or two via the exact same challenge, and the television companies will say, don't matter if you win the ball, it's a penalty, took the man. Don't matter if you win the ball, it's a penalty, and the penalty will be given by another referee, maybe even Chris Kavanagh. So that's not interpretation, that's blatant cheating, that's blatant bias. That's all that is. For me, the way I look at it is, he didn't win the ball and keep the ball. He didn't win the ball and change the direction of the play. He got a fingernail on the ball and took the player. Now, Phil Jagielka got, if we're not going to talk about Mason Holgate, okay, Mason Holgate was, a bad rash challenge. It was high. Yeah, it probably was a sending off in the grand scheme of things. Phil Jagielka got sent off a couple of years ago for winning the ball and barely touching the player. But the statement was, doesn't matter if you win the ball, you got the player. It's nonsense, mate. It's absolute nonsense, in my opinion, anyway. Anyway, let's get into the live comments before we do talk about the game, because there's a lot of positives from this game. Chris Kavanagh will wind me up, and I guarantee when we talk about the penalty situation, I'll get even more wound up. But there's a lot of positives to take from it. There really, really is. We were much, much better defensively. I thought Michael Keane, I said it on the instant match reaction, Michael Keane made a block within the opening sort of 4 or 5 minutes of the game, and it almost set a stall out for the game. For me, typically, I don't know. Don't know whether anybody else agrees with this, but you can usually tell what type of performance Michael Keane's going to have by his opening 5 or 10 minutes. He'll make a decision in the opening 5 or 10 minutes, and it'll either be a really, really good decision or it'll be a really, really bad decision, and you can tell from that point whether or not he's going to have a good game or not. Luckily for us, he made a really good decision for an interception in the opening couple of minutes, and he went on to have a really good game, which is a positive. Ben Godfrey, I thought, was a lot better, a lot better. Probably his best game since returning from injury. I thought everything that he had to deal with, he dealt with well. In the air, he dealt with it well. On the floor, he dealt with it well. He seemed like he was a bit more of a leader on Sunday. He seemed like he was dominating a little bit more, I think. Again, I think Ben Godfrey is probably a fine example of one of those Everton players that ultimately reacted to the crowd's reaction. Ultimately, as I said, really, really played up to the crowd and used that to his advantage. I thought the fullbacks were much, much better than they have been, and I thought the midfield was really good as well. I'm going to talk about the midfield in a moment. We'll talk about Rafa Benitez's starting 11. So let's get into the live comments before we do that anyway. Pokey says, we go again. We certainly do. New club for Rodwell, says Eugene. Nice, bit mad, but nice. Whammy says, hey guys, hi my mate, how you doing? Gord says, I haven't been a stream for a long time, glad to be back. Thank you very much, my mate. Glad to have you back. Obviously, me and Gord speak every day, but great to see you back on the channel, of course. Philip says, hey all, hi my mate. Boki says, it's fine, Cam, we all have lives, don't worry about it. Thank you, my mate, thank you. Whammy says, Gord's long time indeed, how are you, dude? Gord says, I'm great, Minnesota made it to the playoffs. It's right, we desperately need Dukes and DCL, says Ariel, we certainly do. Whammy says, congrats, well played Minnesota boys, I'm cool, thanks. Hernandez says, Gord, you're the man, welcome back, good luck against Seattle. I'm from DC, so we're out of the playoffs. Unlucky, my mate. Louis says, alright Cam, can't wait for DCL to be back. We need them back, mate. We absolutely need them back. We do. We do. Sol says DCL can wear what he wants. Yeah, we might get into that topic on another live stream. We're not going to get into it today because this is the review and I don't want to go off on another tangent. Gord says, thanks for Albia taking our hands. We got to go to Portland and if we win, go to Colorado on Thanksgiving is right. June says, EFC need the spine back ASAP, Mina, Decore and DCL to move up the table. Delph playing well. What are your thoughts on Gray at right back? No. Philip says, just ignore these reporters, they all hate us, they do. And Nandez says, I watched the match over and over and got more mad at how terrible the officiating was. It also made me have an appreciation for Delph in that match. Whatever perception you have to give him credit. Well, let's talk about Fabian Delph and let's talk about the team. So Rafa Benitez, obviously, again, as I said, coming into this one, 3 straight defeats on the bounce, game before the international break, and probably the end of a set of fixtures that, Everton, us as Evertonians, were going into 4 or 5 weeks ago, looking forward to picking up some valuable points. I was sat here a few weeks ago and said I would think we would beat West Ham at Goodison. West Ham had a decent side, really good side. They've proven it against Liverpool last time out. But I would have thought with the home advantage and the way in which we were playing, I thought we'd have beaten West Ham. I'd have thought even if we hadn't beaten West Ham, I wouldn't have been too disheartened, but we should have definitely beaten Watford. We didn't, and I thought we definitely should have beaten Wolves. We didn't. We then had Tottenham, who obviously a few weeks ago were still with Nuno Espirito Santo and playing awfully. So this was the last game in, as I said, a run of fixtures that I think we were all looking at thinking we should be picking up some really good points here, especially considering we're now going into a run of fixtures where we play Manchester City next after the international break, we play Brentford, we play Liverpool, we then go into December where we play all sorts of ridiculous fixtures. I think we've got Leicester, Arsenal, Chelsea all within the space of about 20 minutes. So again, it was imperative, as I said, I can't stress that word enough, imperative that the manager got a result out of this game. And that, as I said, the players turned up and battled. We knew that we were going to be at a disadvantage without the likes of Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Yerry Mina, who of course are all, again, 3 of our best players. If our best player isn't Doucouré, there's an argument it's Dom. If it's not Dom, there's an argument it's Yerry Mina. So having the 3 of them out, the whole spine out, again, for the game against the Spurs side, who have got a new lease of life with Antonio Conte, was always going to be difficult. But the players dug deep. Rafa Benitez obviously started with Jordan Pickford in goal, a back line of, as expected to be fair, Luca Dean at left back, Michael Keane partnering and Ben Godfrey at centre back with Seamus Coleman at right back. Jean-Philippe Gbamin come out, of course, after what was a, let's say, not a great performance against Wolves. I'm not going to sit here and put a lot of blame on him, but it wasn't a great performance. He sat out, and of course, Fabian Delph come in to start after coming on against Wolves at half-time and being absolutely brilliant. He was partnered by Allen in the midfield. Anthony Gordon got his start again, which was brilliant to see. Alex Iwobi again started against Wolves and, scored a goal, but for the majority of the game, didn't really do much else. And Anthony Gordon come on and looked much more lively than Alex Iwobi did, so deserved the start. Damari Gray, Anders Townsend and Richarlison making up the front 3. So a relatively strong side. I think a lot of people were happy to see Fabian Delph in there, considering the impact that he had on the game against Wolves, the week prior. Great to see Richarlison starting again, of course. Started against Wolves, but absolutely great to see him starting again at Goodison Park. And fantastic to see Anthony Gordon in there. Like I said, I think Anthony Gordon is really starting to nail his position as a first teamer now. And for me, Anthony Gordon should start every week. He's showing a different side to himself, and I know I keep mentioning this and don't want to keep repeating myself, but he's showing a different side of himself to something that we haven't seen before this season, and that is getting involved in the physical side of the game, putting his body about, putting the challenges in, working hard. He shoulder buys a couple of players within the opening 10 or 15 minutes on Sunday, which was fantastic to see. just putting himself about, not standing around and waiting for the ball to come to him, not standing around and waiting for the play to come to him, going and seeking the ball, going and seeking possession, going and seeking creating chances. So again, as I said, as far as starting 11s go, obviously we were without Yerry Mina, we were without Abdoulaye Doucouré, we were without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, we knew that, but as starting 11s go, I think it was a relatively strong, probably the strongest one we could have put out. And as I said, we saw instantly the impact of having Fabian Delph in that midfield. I thought Fabian Delph was absolutely fantastic on Sunday. He was my man of the match. Now, yes, if you'd have said to me, 4 or 5 weeks ago, Cam, you'll be sitting here talking about the Tottenham game, doing the review to the Tottenham game, and Fabian Delph will be your man of the match, I'd have probably laughed in your face and said, don't be stupid, Fabian Delph probably won't even be fit for the Tottenham game. And I get that, and I think Hernandez is spot on in the live comments. Whatever our feelings are towards Fabian Delph, whatever our opinions are towards Fabian Delph, whatever our opinions are towards Fabian Delph's performances at the moment, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying, oh, he's only performing well because he wants a new contract. Whatever the reason is for his obtaining performances, and let's be honest, it's only been 1.5 games of footy. He was brilliant when he come on at half-time against Wolves, and he was brilliant on the weekend against Tottenham. It's been, what's that, 90 minutes, not even 90 minutes because he went off. Let's say, 130 minutes of football across 2 games. We can't really get too ahead of ourselves, but that being said, you've got to give him credit because he was fantastic against Wolves, and he was fantastic again on Sunday. He brought in an element to his game that I think showed a lot of people why the club signed him back in 2019. There's been a lot of talk about Fabian Delph, and as I said, a lot of people have got different opinions on Fabian Delph. And my opinion is that I think he's bled the club dry for 3 years. He spent far too much time on the injury table. When he's played, he's not really been that great. However, putting that aside, his performance on Sunday showed us exactly why, whether it was Marcel Brands or somebody else, saw something in him in 2019 to bring him into the football club. There was a couple of situations on Sunday, just easy, simple things like dropping the shoulder in the midfield, like going the other way, feinting the other way from the way that he originally looked like he was going to turn. That just completely and utterly sold the Tottenham midfield down the river. And it's those types of bits of experience and those types of movements of the body and abilities with the ball that ultimately form part of a player that, won however many Premier League titles across his time at Manchester City. He wasn't at Manchester City for as long as he was, winning titles, winning cups every year, because, for no reason whatsoever. He wasn't there for the sake of being there. He was there because Pep Guardiola and previous Manchester City managers, I think Pep Guardiola had signed him actually, felt like he had something to offer, and that something to offer I think was quite evident on Sunday for us. First time he's shown that side of him in 3 years of being an Everton player, but it was quite evident, and it was that ability, I think, football brain-wise, football and IQ, I think he was a level above the Tottenham midfield. In like I said, a couple of times he dropped the shoulder. His interceptions were brilliant on Sunday, absolutely brilliant. We can talk about his movement with the ball, his passing range, his tackling, his work rate, which was all spot on Sunday. I can't fault it whatsoever, but his interceptions for me were better than anything else. There was 2, 3, 4, 5 times that Tottenham were trying to play the ball forward. Tottenham were trying to move the ball forward, sometimes hitting it with pace, sometimes hitting it over the top, sometimes trying those through balls, and Fabian Delph was just there every time to intercept it, there to stop the ball, and it wasn't just intercepting it and then it going back to Tottenham, it was intercepting it and turning that Tottenham counter-attack into a transitioning that into an Everton counter-attack, transitioning that into possession. He put in a real, what I would call, professional's performance. The type of performance you would expect from a 30-odd-year-old whom has won however many Premier League titles across his career and played in however many Champions League games across his career. The type of performance that we were seeing from Gareth Barry week in, week out when he come to Everton after leaving Manchester City. Now, again, as I said, I'm not going to sit here and start putting up banners and start, getting the party hats out for Fabian Delph, because, as I said, he's played 130 minutes of decent football in his 3 years at Everton, and his contract expires in the summer, and he's still got a lot to prove. But again, this is the Spurs review, and we can only judge on what we saw on the weekend. And I think at the weekend he was a pivotal member, a pivotal component of the way in which Everton performed. I also think Fabian Delph reacted to the crowd. I think Fabian Delph, it sort of, again, I think his performance kicked up when the crowd was starting to get behind the team and get get on the back of the likes of Son and Kane, etc. I think we started to see Fabian Delph give a bit more, show a bit more. Now, whether that was because he wanted to, again, play into the hands of Evertonians and make everybody love him, I don't know. Or whether it was just because he thought, this is what I want. I want to play in front of a packed out capacity that is screaming, shouting, getting behind us. One thing's for sure is I think his performance was, as I said, the best in a blue shirt on the weekend. There was a lot of good performers on Sunday. There was a lot of players that worked hard, battled, fought, dug deep. Alan, I think was the same. I think he worked hard, he dug deep, he battled. I think, as I said, the back line, Michael Keane, Ben Godfrey, again, not getting too ahead of myself because I'm fully aware that Michael Keane could go out against Manchester City in a couple of weeks and have an absolutely shocking, performance. But, again, judging him on Sunday, he dug deep, he worked hard, but Fabian Delph for me was the standout. And maybe he was the standout because obviously we've lost Abdoulaye Doucouré, and it's nigh on impossible. I would go as far as to say for Everton to replace Abdoulaye Doucouré, and Fabian Delph doesn't replace Abdoulaye Doucouré, and we saw that in the last 15-20 minutes of the game where he was sort of tired and he had to go off because you could see he was absolutely shattered. He's not the same type of player as Doucouré is. He's not as fit as Doucouré is. He's not going to get about he's not going to get about the pitch as much as Abdoulaye Doucouré will, but he has got the quality and the ability when he wants to show it. He's got the quality, the ability, and the experience to be able to fill that gap next to Alan and do it in a way that means we don't miss Abdoulaye Doucouré as much. And I think that's what he did on Sunday. Obviously, once Abdoulaye Doucouré's fit, he goes straight back in. Of course he does that. That's not even a question. But I was really, really impressed with Fabian Delph's performance on the weekend. I thought he worked hard. I thought he battled. And as I said, it wasn't just necessarily the hard work. The hard work was great. The hard work was great because, again, we haven't seen that for 3 years, and we haven't seen it in this Everton team for 3-4 weeks, whatever it's been, since the game against Manchester United. That was our first point since the draw at Old Trafford all those weeks ago. So the hard work was great, but it was that ability that I felt he showed that almost made me sit back and go, you can see why we signed him. You can see why he stayed at Manchester City for as long as he did. You can see why he was, again, he was a really well-respected Premier League midfielder, back in those days, because he, again, his football and IQ, it was too much for the Tottenham midfield to be able to handle. He was intercepting balls, he was bringing it forward, he was making some really good challenges. He just looked like a leader, and that's not a word I want to use often to describe Fabian Delph. As I said, it's been 1.5 games of good footy from him, so there's a lot to be shown, but the performance was almost not necessarily a leader in terms of screaming and shouting and leading the team, but more so a leading by example type of performance, with the quality that he showed, and as I said, I can't fault him. I thought he played really, really well on Sunday. As I said, the game starts off, Everton are digging deep. I do think it is worth talking about that Son moment, because it almost lifted the crowd, and I think it lifted the atmosphere, and ultimately that lifted the performance of the players, in my opinion. We had that one shot with Ben Godfrey, which sailed into the goalkeeper's arms. Again, very tame shot. And we were struggling to sort of get forward and create chances. As I said, I think the outball into the forward line, the outball into not Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I wish Dominic Calvert-Lewin, the outball into Richarlison and Damari Gray, Andros Townsend wasn't quite there. We weren't quite creating the chances. There was a couple of good balls that were put in, and there was a couple of, really nice bits of play down that wing, but ultimately nothing that really troubled Tottenham Hotspur in any sense of the imagination. And same at the other end of the pitch. Tottenham put a couple of balls into the box. They had one where Emerson Royale headed over. They had one where Sergio Reguilon lasted it. Oh my, I can't even speak. There was one where Sergio Reguilon lashed it into the pub next door. It was that far over. That line would have been probably half funny had I have not botched it 42 times before I said it. But again, this whole myth of, that certain television broadcasters want to put out there of Tottenham's fullbacks dominating Everton. Nonsense, mate. They had 2 chances. One that went massively wide over the bar, and one that went wide over the bar, but not as wide as the other one. And we get to half time, and as I said, quality is lacking from both sides. It's not the greatest game of football to watch, but, and there's a big but coming here, it's an improvement on what we've seen recently. At least the players are digging deep. At least they're showing that they care a bit. At least they're working hard. They're trying hard. And maybe that was because they felt if they hadn't have worked hard, they would have been royally embarrassed. And they wouldn't have had a leg to stand on. With the Wolves game, they could say, again, I'm not saying they would say this, but maybe they were thinking, yeah, we don't have to work hard here. Not Wolves, Watford, we don't have to work hard here. This Watford team are awful. We'll beat them however we play. And we were proven wrong. The Wolves game maybe was sort of a similar mentality subconsciously. This game, and it's always the way, this Everton team always tends to turn up in these games against, dangerous sides, games against sides that it's almost like the players know, right, if I don't give it 110% here, we're going to get absolutely walked over. This crowd is going to get on our back and people aren't going to be happy. So there's no excuse to not give it 100%. Well, there's no excuse to not give it 100% no matter who you're playing, really. But it's like they reacted to the team that they were playing against. And as I said, it was a much better performance for that. Anyway, let's get back in the live comments before we do get back into talking about the second half. We will talk about the penalty situation. We will talk about Mason Holgate's red card as well. But before we do that, let's get back into the live comments. If you're enjoying, by the way, so far, please hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That would mean a great deal to me. If you're watching live in the live comments, get your thoughts in the live comments, and we'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. If you're watching a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below, and we'll get involved with as many of them as well. Louis says, Delph looked like a proper player. He did. Let's hope that he can continue to show that. Uden says, after the international break, Everton play City away, Brentford away. And then we have the Merseyside derby on the 1st December. We do at Goodison. So again, next home game is the derby, which is, we'll wait and see how that one plans out. Louis talking about the Godfrey stamp on Son. I didn't see it in real time, and I've since seen it in the replay. Listen, I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to sit here and contradict myself. I'm not going to sit here and say, it was amazing, it was brilliant, it was great to see. The reality is, if it was the other way around, I would have been sitting here screaming and shouting for Son to get sent off. I probably think Ben Godfrey is maybe a little bit lucky that VAR didn't check it, or certainly didn't appear to check it. For the sole reason as to that, because Chris Kavanagh was very clearly wanting Spurs to win that game on Sunday, so had they have checked that, he'd have sent him off with no problem. But I don't think it was purpose. I think it was accidental. He was trying to get the ball. Even sort of, if you look at the video, even in slow-mo, he leans down with his other arm as if to say, sorry, I didn't mean that, lad. So I don't think it's was done purposely whatsoever. And Anders says, I'll say this again, not that there's an easy match in the Prem, but we always show up against the big teams in the league, but against the bottom half of the table, we looked uninterested. Yeah, exactly what I've just been saying, mate. Exactly what I've just been saying. I agree completely. Eugene says, Everton set for fresh new stadium investments opportunities at Bramley-Moore. He was poor the entire game, says Dennis. I think talking about the referee. Defo was a red card. We need Marco Silva back. We don't. Eugene says, Williams says usually no one is interested about Ramsey. ABG says Kane and Son didn't get a kick. They didn't all game, you're right. We don't need Marco Silva back. He's doing well at Fulham, and fair play, and I wish Marco Silva the best of luck. It's great to see him doing well at Fulham, but we don't need him back at Everton. Williams says, I don't think it was a penalty, but we should have got the ball back. There is a rule that says you can't go in with 2 feet off the ground. Holgate doesn't, it's unnecessary. There is a rule about the goalkeeper going in with his hands for the ball, but he isn't in danger. And Richie, if we have to depend on refs to have a decent game to win, we're in trouble. Refs are garbage. Yeah, I agree. Philip says, the worst ever was Clive Thomas. He blatantly ruled out a goal in the infamous Cup semi against the Shite. He admitted he was told to stop us winning at any cost. Liverpool won. See, so when you've got referees, when you've got referees that are openly coming out, and I know that was years and years and years ago, and I understand that, but when you've got referees that are openly coming out and saying that, they were told to allow a certain team to win, that's match fixing. That we may as well turn footy into the WWE. We may as well, because it's match fixing at the highest level. And I still think a bit of that's going on at the moment, if I'm being honest. Just my opinion. But yeah. And Savile says the penalty situation was a joke. How can VAR say it was clear and obvious error? Totally undermine their argument when they watch the screen about 20 replays. Yeah, I agree. Anyway, look, let's get back into the game then. I'm back in to the second half. And then we'll talk about the penalty. So as I said, we come out for the second half. I think we're the better team at this point. We're certainly causing more of a threat to Tottenham. Yes, granted, we still aren't creating an awful lot of chances. There's still a distinct lack of quality in the final third. But I think Tottenham at this point weren't really showing much. I think they'd slowed down. I think Everton were seeming like the better team. We were seeming like the team that were in more control. We were seeming like the team that wanted it more. And then a really good long ball gets played up towards Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon gets dragged down, which is the first foul, not given. Okay, referee plays advantage. Richarlison picks it up, takes it past Hugo Lloris. Hugo Lloris takes him down, clearly takes him down. Now, before we talk about the penalty, Richarlison then gets back up, wins the ball, takes the ball to the edge of the box, and there's a still frame. I can't show it on this live stream because I'll probably get copyrighted by the television broadcaster that it was taken from. But there's a still image of Richarlison with the ball on the edge of the box. Hugo Lloris about 40 yards off his line, standing about 10 yards away from Richarlison. The nearest Tottenham defender to the line being about, 10 yards away from the line. So it's not like he's on the line defending, he's away from it. And Andros Townsend being just on the edge of the box with his closest defender looking away from him. Now keep that in mind because that's a really important bit of information. So the referee blows his whistle in that situation, points to the penalty spot. First of all, as I said by Travels in the comments, I thought VAR only checked clear and obvious errors. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Richarlison took the ball past Hugo Lloris. Hugo Lloris made contact with his foot, clearly made contact because Chris Kavanagh gave the penalty. If Chris Kavanagh felt he hadn't have made contact, then he wouldn't have given the penalty. And he went down and the referee points to the spot. Now, again, I'm going to go out on a whim here and assume that the referee knew what he was doing or at least had some form of clue about the decision he was making. If he did, then how is it a clear and obvious error? It's not a clear and obvious error in my opinion. It simply isn't. The penalty should have stood without any need for VAR. In fact, Kavanagh should have been confident enough to say, check it all you want. I know what I've seen. It's a penalty. So, the penalty's given. Obviously, there were celebrations in the stands, but deep down we all knew that you can't celebrate until VAR checks it. The referee goes over to the monitor, checks the penalty 3 or 4 times, rules it out, and then Everton done something that they don't usually do, and I'm not too sure that they're supposed to do. But they showed the replay on the screen afterwards. They also showed the Mason Holgate replay, which I thought was good. But they showed the replay, and that's spot on. By the way, football clubs should absolutely show the replay on the screen afterwards, because then it gives the fans the opportunity to look at why the decision is being made. And we got to see that the decision had been made through what we can only assume is incompetency by the referee or clear bias, because there was no other reason. And he disallows the penalty. Now, my take on this is that, as I said, I think rules that are to be interpreted are nonsense. Absolute nonsense, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. You can't have a rule where one referee might wake up on a Saturday and say, if that happens today, I'm going to give a penalty. Another referee might wake up the next Sunday and say, if that happens, I'm not going to give a penalty. That's not a rule then, is it? It's not a rule. You may as well say to the referees, there's no rules. You just manage the game how you want to manage the game. You just make it up as you go along. Because that's all that is, making it up as you go along. If you're enjoying, by the way, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you are new. If you're watching this YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. We'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can as well. But as I said, I don't get it. I don't get it. Does Hugo Lloris get a slight touch on the ball? Yes, he does. Yes, he does get a slight touch on the ball. It's nowhere near as significant of a touch for me to deem the challenge he made on Richarlison to be acceptable. He gets a fingernail on the ball, if that. Now, the rules in this day and age in football is that, it's from what I understand, is that it's got to be some form of significant touch. You've got to change the movement of the ball, or you've got to get a hand on it. Something along those lines. Not a fingernail on it. If you get a fingernail on the ball and then take the player down with you, you haven't gotten enough on the ball to deem that a challenge, if you like, and the player has gone down. Now, I don't know. This is what confused me, because the rules are bollocks. The referees are bollocks. They're all... The rule book is a nonsense. This is what confuses me. What confuses me and frustrates me even more is that I know if that was in the last minute at Anfield or the last minute at Old Trafford and Cristiano Ronaldo had gone down in those circumstances, or even forget any other team, if that's up the other end of the pitch and Harry Kane's gone down, that penalty is being given. And I can say that confidently. Chris Kavanagh can sit in front of me and deny it all he likes. I can confidently say that if that's at the other end of the pitch, it's given 100%, no doubt in my mind, it's being given. If it's Harry Kane falling over, or if it's any other of the big, scruffy, scummy, idiot, knobhead six, whatever you want to call them, that of one of their players that is going down, that penalty's being given. In fact, I've seen penalties be given for those scummy six sides in that exact same circumstance. And the excuse the commentators give is, doesn't matter that he got a touch on the ball, it's not a significant enough touch, and he denied the goal scoring opportunity. And I've looked at it and thought, yeah, I agree with that. You know, he got a fingernail to it, but ultimately he's hooked the player's legs and he's denied the player from going on and scoring without making a clean enough challenge. So why is it different when it's Everton? Why, when it's Everton, is it he touched the ball? And I know some people might say it's incompatible to the Mason Holgate challenge, but Mason Holgate was sent off for dangerous play. And to be honest, I've got no big issue with it. Not only because I think Mason Holgate isn't very good, but also because I do think it's stupid in hindsight. And on VAR, when you slow it down and when you do a still frame, obviously it looks 100 times worse than what it probably does in real life. I've got no big issue with that. But the reason they give, if I'd sit here in front of the FA, or even on this live stream in front of people in the comments, or in front of Chris Kavanagh, and say, yeah, but got the ball. Because he did win the ball cleanly. Won the ball first, the ball went in a different direction. None of this, barely got a nail on the ball. He volleyed the ball up the end of the pitch. The referee would say, yeah, but doesn't matter, it was the action that followed that was dangerous, deemed dangerous. Well, surely then it doesn't matter that Hugo Lloris got a touch on the ball, because the action that followed prevented Richarlison from a goal scoring opportunity. So how I cannot comprehend how that then turns out to not be a penalty, because he got a touch. Had he have swooped the ball away from Richarlison, had he have caught the ball, had he have gotten a big hand on it and moved it away, changed the direction of the play, I'd say, well, he's won the ball there, so it's fair enough. They had to zoom in 400 fucking times and, you know, stop it and slow it down to minus 43,000 speed to see his fingernail brush the ball. Is that enough to warrant whipping a player up and avoiding a goal scoring opportunity? Obviously it is for Richarlison. Would it be enough for Harry Kane? Would it be enough for Mohamed Salah? Would it be enough for Cristiano Ronaldo? I don't think it would. I don't think it would whatsoever. The second point of this issue I have is the stoppage in play. I'd go as far as to say Chris Kavanagh shouldn't have been allowed to overturn his decision because of the fact that he blew for the penalty when we still had a clear goal scoring opportunity. Now, I've seen some people, I put this image on Twitter and it got a load of traction, so if you haven't seen it, go on our Twitter and you'll see it on the media, on the videos, and you'll see it, on the pictures and you'll see it. A lot of people were saying, don't be stupid, Richarlison wouldn't have scored from there. The reality is, Richarlison was on the edge of the box. Hugo Lloris was miles off his line. The nearest Spurs defender was nowhere near the line. There was an open goal, and it's not beyond the realms of possibility for a Premier League footballer to be able to chip the ball in a certain direction and if it to go in the back of the net. I think a bang average Premier League footballer could have put that in the back of the net in that situation. As I said before, not only that, but if you actually look at the picture, the still image, that again, as I said, it's on our Twitter, Andros Townsend is hovering around the D. Had Richarlison had dinked the ball into the box, Andros Townsend could have ran off his defender and he had as open of a goal as any. And the referee is blown for a penalty. So not only is he blown for a penalty and then overturned the decision in a way that I simply can't comprehend because I think it's a blatant penalty all day long, but he's also blown for a penalty when he has seen that there's a clear goal-scoring opportunity. Now, where does the advantage rule apply in all of this? Why couldn't Chris Kavanagh have allowed that game to play on? Either let Richarlison dink the ball into Andros Townsend and score or miss, or have the shot himself and either scored or miss. Had we have scored, then it wouldn't have mattered. No penalty, doesn't matter, you've scored. Had we have not scored, he could have done what they do in every other situation, in every other game, and said, right, we're going back and we're checking that that's a penalty. If you're unsure, then don't give it until there's a stoppage in play. If you're sure, then why are you overturning a penalty? Because it's not a clear and obvious error if you're sure. So, it's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense in my opinion. It's nonsense. And as I said, the referee in that situation, when he blew for that penalty, when Richarlison was stood on the edge of the box, with Hugo Lloris was fucking made up. He blew for that penalty. Made up. Because he was miles off his line and he knew that once he blew for that penalty, there was a good chance it was getting overturned because the referee had been in Spurs' back pocket all game. Bloody hell, he must have wanted to sign shirt or something from Harry Kane after it, or his phone number or something, or to go for a pint with him. So Hugo Lloris was made up. In fact, he was almost screaming for it to be given, if you watch the video, because he knew it'd get overturned and he knew he'd get out of jail. then Spurs got the ball back. So not only have we had a blatant penalty overturned, the referee has blown up with a clear goal scoring opportunity and not played the advantage rule and then overturned the penalty. But he's also then give the ball back to Spurs. Why wasn't the ball given back to Richarlison and Hugo that he's told to stand where he was standing when the whistle was blown, and the defenders to stand where they were standing when the whistle was blown, and Richarlison to have the ball here? Why is it then a Spurs free kick? It's almost like Everton had gotten forward, created the chance, took it round the goalkeeper, been fouled, won the ball back, and then just the referee had gone, no, you can't do that. Spurs have that ball. Imagine that it'd been the other end of the pitch and Harry Kane. Imagine Harry Kane had gone one-on-one with Jordan Pickford and the referee had blown up and gone, no, give the ball back to Jordan Pickford. I don't want you to go one-on-one. It's fucking nonsense, mate. It's absolute nonsense. Tom says in the comments, we all know the real reason it was overturned is because the big six make the money, so they want to keep them in Europe. Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. The real reason it was overturned, in my opinion, is because Antonio Conte is in charge of Tottenham. It was his first game in charge. Sky had spent the entirety of the day talking up about it being his first game in charge. They're still talking now about how they dominated us when they didn't, and they couldn't have stood with Spurs losing. So somebody has had contact with the referee and said, listen, do your best to make sure these avoid losing today, because it's going to be quite embarrassing if they go out and lose this game of footy, narrowly, when they've just brought in a new manager. If they get battered, then there's nothing we can do about it. But if there's a decision to be made, give it their way. That's how I see it. Some people will say, don't be stupid, Cam, you're chatting shit. That you're acting like there's an agenda, this, that, and the other. That's how I see it. I honestly think if that's a challenge made on any of the scummy six players, it's given. It's absolutely given. But anyway, look, it wasn't given. Chris Kavanagh, as I said, blows up weirdly. Gives the ball back to Tottenham as if Everton have done anything wrong, and then the play continues. And then, as I said again, we're saying with the Son challenge, the Son situation in the opening couple of minutes, the crowd then rose. It's situations like that, it's decisions like that that get the crowd on the feet, that get the crowd up, that give the crowd that boost, that and that sort of what's nastiness behind them and behind us at Goodison, and that sort of everyone's against us, so we're getting behind this team mentality. And to be honest, it was great. It was absolutely great. It was absolutely great that the crowd reacted to Chris Kavanagh, who shouldn't be able to referee at Goodison again. I remember a similar situation happening with Manchester United, where they felt like a certain referee was acting against them, and I think Sir Alex Ferguson wrote a letter and he never refereed Man United for 2 years again. I think Liverpool might have even done it at some point as well. It's not tinfoil hat brigade though, is it? It's not. It's not. Because if somebody can sit there in the comments now, live comments on them, and give me a genuine reason why that penalty should have been disallowed, then I'll say fair enough. And if you can, why can't Chris Kavanagh come out and say it? But look, anyway, the penalty wasn't given, and as I said, the crowd got a lift, the crowd got a boost, and all of a sudden Everton again, I was going to say again the better team, but we were the better team for the whole game. We dominated Spurs, if anything. Obviously Fabian Delph's come off at this point. We had Jean-Philippe Gbamin come on, Mason Holgate come on in the midfield, which was a bit of a mad substitution. And then obviously later in the game, who else come on? Tom Davies come on as well, I believe. But let's talk about the Mason Holgate midfield substitution, because a lot of people were critical of Rafa Benitez's substitutions on the weekend, and have been critical of Rafa Benitez's substitutions since he come in as Everton manager, to be fair. I think it was a bit mad. Now, it's mad, isn't it? Because people have been calling for Mason Holgate to get his chance in midfield for a long, long time. He had that one game against Manchester United a few years ago in midfield where he was absolutely brilliant. And since then, people have been calling to see him in that role. Now, I think one thing we can understand now is the Mason Holgate that we witnessed against Manchester United was strangely a better player than the Mason Holgate we're seeing now. He seems to have gone backwards. He seems to have, in terms of his progress as a professional footballer, he seems to have, as I said, gone backwards rather than gone forwards. So it makes sense that his performance in midfield against Man United all them years ago was better than what it was to be on Sunday, because he was a better footballer then. Certainly was performing a lot better than what he is now, which again is for me quite worrying on his point of view for his Everton career. If you're a 25-year-old and you're still not, you're still being looked at as somebody that has got potential in the future, then you've probably not got the what it takes to play at this level. But anyway, As I said, the decision was made by the manager. He brought on Mason Holgate, didn't bring on Jean-Philippe Gbamin straight away, which I thought was a little bit weird, because I think Jean-Philippe Gbamin in the last 20 minutes against the Tottenham side would have shown more than what he did against Wolves from the off last week, albeit I understand that his performance against Wolves wasn't very good and his fitness looked a massive issue, so maybe that was why the manager didn't choose to put him on. But he brought Mason on in the midfield, and as I said, we'll talk about the sending off in a minute. I'm going to get in the live comments before we do that. But before we talk about the sending off, he wasn't great, was he? He wasn't great. He must have only touched the ball about 3 or 4 times, Mason, before he got sent off. And they were all utterly shocking touches of the ball. He gave the ball away 2 or 3 times. He played us into danger on a couple of times. I think he missed the challenge wildly in the middle of the park as well. He just looked like, A, didn't know where he was meant to be. And also, B, it looked like he was trying to have an impact on the game by making a rash challenge or trying to make a silly long pass that was never going to work, and trying to show the manager that he's got something in the midfield by doing something overly exuberant that was always going to end up in failure. Not just doing the simple basics, because if he'd have done the simple basics, we'd have all been sitting here going, oh, Mason looked all right in the midfield, didn't he? It almost seemed like he wanted to do more to show something that he didn't end up showing, because I thought he was poor. As I said, sending off aside, I thought he was poor when he come on. Couple of touches, he let the ball go away. And there's a conversation to be had about Mason Holgate. And it's not for this live stream. Maybe it's for a different live stream in the near future. Maybe over the international break where we sit down and talk about his future. But it's worrying for Mason at the moment. If you're enjoying this stream, please hit that like button. It only takes a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. That would be absolutely fantastic as well. Let's get into the live comments before we go back into the game then. Where are we? Remy says, go in with 2 feet off the ground. Holgate does, and it's unnecessary. There's no rule about the keeper going in with his hands for the ball because he isn't endangering Richie. I get that. And I get it's not a compatible situation because obviously Mason Holgate was endangering Højbjerg, I think it was. But Lloris denied a goal-scoring opportunity, and then Chris Kavanagh denied a goal-scoring opportunity. So how have we come out of that with nothing is what I want to know. If you're enjoying, by the way, please hit that thumbs up button. It only takes a second if you're new. Don't forget to subscribe. Whammy says, if we have to depend on refs to have a decent game... Oh, we've read that one out, didn't we? Oh, we've read all these out. What am I doing? Where are we? Philip says, I'm made up with Anthony. The lad looks strong, no nonsense player. Yeah, Delamere says, late to the team, but gobsmacked Holgate got a red, but Cresswell got nothing. I know the refs are different, but isn't VAR the same? There you go, mate. There you go. If Mason Holgate does a red, and I hate Liverpool as much as the next Evertonian, and I'll very rarely stick up for Liverpool Football Club, but Aaron Cresswell made an absolute mirror image challenge, I think, on Jordan Henderson as to the one that Mason Holgate made, and he walked away with nothing. What's this inconsistency about? What's this? Again, personally for me, the way I see it is I think some referees are biased and may be told to referee a game in a certain manner, and some are just utterly atrocious. Stuart Atwell must still have his white shirt on. Philip says, for those who may not know, Fabian was knocking at the England door. Hopefully he can keep it up. There you go. Harold says, I'm not even reading that, Harold, to be honest with you, my mate. I don't even why I've said my mate there either, to be honest. Whammy says the refs are VAR exactly the same idiots watching idiots, but at the end of the day, if you're complaining about your refs, you're probably not playing very well. Well, yeah, we're not playing very well, to be fair, you're right. Congrats on 5k, over 5k. It says, Glenn, subs first time catching you live since it happened. Thank you very much, my mate, really appreciate it. It means a lot. APG says, we all know who the media want to win. Yeah, Seablay says, Cam, can you go to Goodison if you're under 18 without an adult? And how much is hospitality tickets in the park end? Yes, you can, I believe. And I'm not sure how much hospitality tickets in the park end are, unfortunately. I apologise about that one. Crimson says, alright, Cam, hope you're alright. I'm good, mate. Seablay says, you can indeed go under 18. I'm happy with Benitez, says Aaron. Aaron says, I was gutted with the decision. It's always us, lad. We are one of those clubs where the refs hate us until the derby. I expect the same there too. Yeah, I agree. Crimson says they should 100%. Why should the TV get replays but people at the game don't? Doesn't make sense. Not trying to shit on people who can't go to the game and whatnot, but Yeah, I agree. And like I said, by the way, I'm not having a go at Everton for showing the replays. I thought it was boss, and I think they should do it every single time a VAR check is made. And I actually think that other Premier League clubs should do it. I actually, when we were walking home from the game on Sunday, I had a Tottenham fan walking next to us saying he thinks it's brilliant that they show the replays in the stadium. He thinks it's fantastic, and I agree. Crimson says if Richie was English, he'd have probably got it. If he was Harry Kane, he'd have got it. Frank says Hackett reference penalty touching the ball is being ruled out 2 years ago. It's immaterial whoever touches the ball, therefore it was a penalty. Hackett works independently. Gallagher works for Sky. Yeah. Harold says Holgate had a free clearance, then acted like a fool. Eugene says Kavanagh and VAR game bottled it with the penalty, yeah, and they know it. Tom says we all know the real reason. We read that one out. Spot on, Tom. Crimson says Richie had got up straight away, so advantage should have been given because he either didn't feel anything or knew there was a chance. Yeah, I agree. He also says, mate, look at the highlights of it. We dominated them. Highlights don't show anything, only space clips. Yeah, they did. The highlights are embarrassing. It's embarrassingly funny that they've decided to just... The highlights on Sky Sports YouTube channel didn't even show the only shot on target of the game, which was Ben Godfrey's. They just showed Tottenham's chances. Anyway, let's get into the rest of the game before we finish up. As I said, penalty isn't given. The crowd reacts, and all of a sudden Everton for the last 10-15 minutes getting forward again. The manager's made his changes. Mason's come on in the midfield, give the ball away a couple of times, give Tottenham a little bit of a spike in momentum because of that, and then obviously he goes and gets himself sent off. Now, as I said, first viewing, I thought, how can you get sent off for winning the ball? On second, third, fourth and fifth viewing, and having seen it in slow motion replay with the still images, yeah, I haven't got many complaints about it, to be honest. I still don't understand the rules, but I haven't got many complaints about it. His foot is extremely high, and let's be honest, he was shite when he come on anyway, so it wasn't like it would have made much difference. It was rash, it was silly. Did he need to do it? I don't know, maybe he'd say the momentum of his foot, he didn't have a choice, but when you're slowing a challenge down like that and you're freeze framing it with VAR, it's always going to get given. But anyway, Mason gets sent off. Spurs have one last chance in the last couple of minutes. They hit the post. That was about it, really. And then obviously the game comes to an end. And as I said, the best Everton performance since Manchester United in terms of the effort, the desire the players showed. Defensively, I thought the back line was really good. They didn't have an awful lot to deal with. Harry Kane may as well have been sat next to me, and Son may as well have stayed at home and saved himself, being screamed at by the Evertonians all game. But as I said, they worked hard, they battled the defence, as I said, albeit didn't have an awful lot to do. They done what they had to do well. I thought Ben Godfrey dealt with everything he needs to do well. Same with Michael Keane. The fullbacks were much better. As I said, I thought Fabian Delph was brilliant in midfield. Alan dug deep, worked hard. I thought he performed well. And the forward line, albeit creatively, there wasn't an awful lot there, and there wasn't a mass amount of quality in the final third. I thought, there was effort, there was work rate, there was determination. And that's what we want to see. Ultimately, there was a lack of quality. And, there's probably an element of us all as Evertonians that'll sit back and look at this game and think, should have won that. Tottenham aren't a great side whatsoever. That was a good opportunity to go out and beat one of the scummy six or whatever you want to call them, and build a bit of momentum ahead of what is an absolutely ridiculously tough run of fixtures over the next coming weeks and months. But in the way in which we've been playing, in the context of the situation, in the context of Tottenham's situation with a new manager, I think it's a decent point. It's a decent point, and it was a performance that I think we can look at and take a lot more positives than what we have been able to in recent weeks. Let's get into the comments before we finish then. We have no decent subs feel for Rafa because we definitely need a refresh versus Spurs. He Blues audition. Harold says Fabian Delph is a fraud. Next 5 games he'll give us nothing. Well, let's wait and see. Gamba says Holgate does not support what a centre-back's supposed to do, so why Benitez made that sub? Well, he made him in midfield, didn't he? Which was even more baffling, really. And Crimson says, again, like Tom said, West Ham top 6 making money go easy. Yeah. There you go. Well, look, West Ham were brilliant against Liverpool, to be fair, on Sunday evening. It was Sunday, wasn't it? Get me days mixed up on Sunday evening. But look, we'll wait and see if David Moyes and West Ham can keep that up, won't we? Anyway, look, that's going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. If you're watching the YouTube video, don't forget to leave your likes. Don't forget to leave your comments in the YouTube comment section. Leave your likes as well. That'll be absolutely boss. If you watched as a live stream, big thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments. I really, really do appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It would mean a great deal to me. And yeah, it means an absolutely massive amount. We will be back tomorrow with another live stream. I'm going to sit down and talk various different topics over the next couple of days. Tomorrow, Friday, and then of course it's an international break. So we'll sit down and we'll delve into a couple of other subjects that we mightn't usually be able to, given the fact that we play all the time. So yeah, big thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this one, please hit that thumbs up button. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. Big thanks to everybody for getting involved in the live comments and the YouTube comments as well. Union says, I think Everton will sell John Joe Kenny in January. If somebody bids for him. Somebody mightn't bid for him. But if they do, then I would assume we will. And Crimson says, cheers for the team. Come have a good night. Thank you very much. Big thanks everybody for watching. Really appreciate it. Hope you have a lovely evening again. Sorry that the review was on a Wednesday this week. I've been manic busy over the last couple of days, so I couldn't really do much about it. Big thanks for watching. Have an absolutely amazing night. And we'll see you tomorrow on the Mighty Blues. Cheers for watching. See you after.